Why I feel in the face of all the problems in the world impotent, and why I somehow cannot manage to transform I. Now here we get to the real problem, because we're always telling each other that we should be different. Now I'm not going to tell you that tonight. Why not? Because I know you can't. Nor can I. That may sound depressing, but I'll tell you it isn't. It's very hard. But everybody, you see, who is at all sensitive and awake to their own problems and human problems is trying to change himself. We know we can't change the world unless we change ourselves. So when we are aware of the ego I, we are aware of this chronic tension inside ourselves. And that's not us. It's a futile tension. So when we get the illusion, the image of ourselves, married to a futile tension, you've got an illusion married to a futility. And then you wonder why I can't do anything.
Good morning. Welcome to today's live stream. Let's dive into it. So, mixed feelings about today's chart. We're still in that super tight compressing range. Let's draw out the values so we can actually represent our flag instead of simply calling it a flag, yeah? we do have a compressing period of volatility overhead, which allows us to smack pretty good boundaries on price. Goodness gracious, this chart is so slow. Okay, we want to look at the 100 period today. So, why the 100 period, you might ask? Because the 100 period represents volatility overhead, and the 300 period represents the longest overexpanded period. So, those are our trend definers for the moment. So we know it's going to be increasingly difficult for price action to leave this compressing band right here. It is currently the 100 period. Yesterday it was the 80 period. Every day it does get a little bit longer. So we really just need to buckle up and wait until it actually leaves the range. Since until it leaves the range, well, we can't really expect anything to happen, can we? So, a breakout. People call that a breakout, don't they? So yeah, it's totally a flag. It's just the direction is not currently implied by the flag itself. Direction is implied by the mean reversion pivot, right? And the mean reversion pivot is the 300 band 1.25 standard deviation. If we were to enter this bad boy right there, that pivot, price would need to revert back to the 300 moving average on this chart, that location. And we know, well, if we retrace all the way back down to the previous springboard levels, well, you might as well just assume retracement all the way back down to the weekly 200 moving average, which is currently around $3,400. So what kind of retracement would that be? Well, it's currently about 34%. Oh, my math was spot on. Cool. Then there's one other thing we need to look at. It's actually that pivot on a shorter time frame, because it's much more well respected down here because it's on a higher resolution. And did I say it was 1050? If I recall correctly, it should be 1050. We can load up a higher resolution as we need, but this should show us exactly what we need. Perfect, yeah. So, with the higher resolution, we do get a more accurate result. And you'll notice that the pivot for mean reversion is actually very well protected. You'll notice price does come down and test it, but it does avoid true entry and a candle close inside. This is one of the reasons why you wait for CCI roll down before entering your shorts, right? Because we want entry and then we want the swing high before the downtrend, right? If we just bet that it's going to go straight down from where it enters, that's not going to be very profitable because price volatility will be high at key pivots, resulting in candles, or rather periods of trading like this, where it does dip inside briefly, but it does need to trend a little bit more sustainably inside the pivot for it to actually be considered golden. With that in mind, I don't think there's any true expansion on any of the time frames. What we do have, though, is our longest and change these back to our regular values. $200 and $50. Okay. So we are waiting for us on the weekly, excuse me. There we go. My God, this is a slow chart. Okay. Again, we are getting another large period of compression on the macro time frame instead of the 4-hour, which also gives us some interesting perspective. We have the 50 period coming down. It's going to smack down price repeatedly. And my god, this MA is going to take ages to finally retrace to its normal values. Well, normal is the incorrect word. Back to, say, the weekly 200 here. Right, because price is going to be squished in between these two pivots for quite some time. And then, whichever way it breaks, either above the weekly 50 or below the weekly 200, is how we're going to decide the longer-term direction of trend. So, if you want to invest in a bull run for Bitcoin, you do not invest here. You invest at one of two locations. Above the weekly 50 or right on top of the weekly 200. Those are your two safest bets. Right? Because once we're above the weekly 50, we're not going back below it. And we aren't going below the weekly 200 either. So using that value as a springboard to catch some new longs down here at around 3,700 on this ticker. Right? Those values are going to hopefully allow us to get some leveraged long-term positions. And it is important to note, I am expecting a spring, right? In terms of Wyckoff accumulation, it's where price dips below the support values for a very brief period of time before trend continuation. If we were to actually look at the previous crash pattern, we would notice that it was, for less than a week, price did dip below the weekly 200 moving average. And this is typically an attempt to scoop up the liquidity of retail investors, right? Because if everybody has a buy order here, everybody's stop loss will be here. So if you push price below where everyone's buy order is, well, they stop out. If you want to scoop up some more long positions, well, all you got to do is force price down. And, you know, I don't think it's going to be as significant considering the increase of OTC transactions recently, but we'll see how it all plays out. That's really all I have to say about Bitcoin. It has been a pleasure trading with you folks. I'll see you later.